Alrighty, welcome to Whatchu Spinnin episode 5. I am Dorian, and as usual, we've got Jake joining me. How you doing?
We're doing good. I'm getting ready.
Hell yeah. And George, how are you doing?
What's up? What's up?
Hell yeah. So, off camera, we decided that we would talk about my album, and as you saw at the end of last week's episode, I picked Good Kid, M.a.a.d City by Kendrick Lamar. I always feel like a kid on show and tell when I'm like introducing this part. It's funny as hell to me. Great album. I kind of misquoted. It wasn't his debut album. It was his first self-released album back in 2012. Pretty impactful to modern day rap, honestly, with all the new guys coming out and stuff. He is one of the Mount Rushmore rappers in the game right now, in my personal opinion. But yeah, what did y'all think?
Jake?
I love this album, man. It's a great album. It's one of the albums that I had first introduced me to Kendrick, because I hadn't listened to Section 80 before this, but when this album dropped, I remember I visually remember. I have memories of it, summertime, me hanging with my friends and just us playing songs off of this album back to back, because they're all fucking bangers, dude. Swimming pools, I remember playing that a lot. Just like that, the intro and to it, it's pull up, drink, shot, drink. I like that loop just plays in my mind sometimes, especially when I think back to that summertime, I was just kicking it with the homies. But yeah, it's a fantastic album. I did want to mention before anybody else says it before me, I love the samples. I love the sampling on this album. It's so good. At one point, he samples Beach House. He samples that Beach House song for what song is that? I gotta look at it. But he samples Beach House. He samples My Twin Sister, Meet the Frownies, which that song it's for it's on the deluxe version that you have, Dorian, that it talks about what song is that? On the deluxe version, it is The Recipe. That song, it has a Mr. Twin Sister, the sample on it. I think that's really cool that he samples different artists and different genres. Those are two indie groups that you how do you come up with samples like that? And then he even samples Janet Jackson on her voice for Poetic Justice with Drake on it. The sampling on this album, I really like the samples, because you listen to it and you're like, hey, I know that song. I'm like, hey, that's a fucking that's a snippet taking out of an Ice-T song, or it's the sampling I love on this album. But yeah, what you got on it, George?
The sampling is super cool. Like you said, I feel to me, I think sampling really is kind of this is going to be a weird analogy, but it's the centerpiece to a suit. The tie is the thing that brings everything together. The tie, and then same thing with shoes. It depends. You could just change your shoes and it changes your whole outfit, and I feel that's what sampling is to hip hop. You choose one sample and that's everything around it revolves around that one sample or multiple. Yeah, Jacob, I'd even really dive into what kind of samples he did or Dre did. But I mean, knowing Dre, he's always sampling crazy ass shit. But yeah, him being from Compton, and then I recently just read that his parents are from Chicago, which is it's kind of crazy to think about. But I remember when I heard him on Section 80, I heard High Power first, I think. and his voice and the way he sounded like pulled me in so much because he sounded different from any other rapper. He sounded so different. His voice was unique. And I just feel like right out of the gate, like what was so crazy, and it was like almost like unsettling, is that he had such confidence like behind what he was saying. Like whenever he's rapping about something, he's just full blown confident. Like there's no like timid like behavior or anything. And it's just super cool. That whole album, yeah, it's just a banger. Backseat Freestyle and Mad City are definitely something that I want to ride my bike to like really hard. You know? Yeah, it's super cool. And then also I forget what song it is. Pharrell did the beat for one of them, for one of the tracks. I think it's like the third song in.
Yeah, I want to say it's Back. No, that one Hit Boy produced that one. It's I know what song you're talking about. Yeah, Pharrell.
Yeah.
Poetic Justice.
Yeah, cool.
The Art of Peer Pressure. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, and then like there's like really like this song, like I have mixed feelings about it because it does seem kind of like weird, but it's also pretty good, and it gets me in like a weird like trance when I'm listening to it. I don't know if I should feel good or happy or like sad, but Real is a like very interesting song to me on this whole album. I think that one stands out the most because it's different from everything else on that track list. And then Swimming Pools, when I listened to that song and then watched the video for it, I was like, dude, this is badass, man. Like, this is so good. Poetic Justice and Money Trees, I think I listened to the most when I heard this album. And just like you, Jacob, I think because this came out in 2012, like I was just getting into high school and I had just bought my like iPod Touch and I just started discovering music. And then this album and Section 80 were like one of the first like albums that I was really diving into other than the stuff that I didn't know or that I knew about. And dude, yeah, there's just Money Trees especially, like I'm like I listen to them, I'm like, damn, like I have so many memories of me just like either lounging or just being outside, like messing around with my soccer ball, or you know, it's all good. And then like the album cover art kind of reminds me of El Camino because it's also like a band,
right?
And I don't know the backstory behind that album cover art. Like I'm not sure if maybe that's like
it's his mama's van that's in the skits. Yeah.
And I think that's cool as fuck because my parents had a blue Dodge Caravan like that. We had a blue one. But yeah, it was like the same van, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have for now. I mean, I know like being from Compton, like there's like a lot of other rappers, right, that were super like big, like Dre and Easy and like The Game and stuff like that, and like a bunch of other people. But to grow up in that environment and then to be able to, you know, just do something artistic, and I feel like his raps are kind of like politically charged, but also like you can vibe to it without getting too like into politics, you know. But I feel like he always kind of played that role, but then also he has like those radio hitters that doesn't sound like sellout shit. It's kind of like still cool to listen to, you know, like a Swimming Pool and Poetic Justice, which he had Drake on, which later they had like subliminal beef or whatever. But Yeah, I mean his whole class was pretty sick. I mean, it was Cole, Kendrick, Drake. Um, I want to say like Wiz Khalifa or something. Like that whole class of people that came out of that like era was pretty sick. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have so far for Good Kid, Mad City.
Hell yeah. No, one of my favorite things about it is damn near every song, it has like two whole halves to it, to where it's like a completely different thing.
Like Compton.
Yeah, Compton, swimming pools. What else do I have here? Mad City. Uh, just, yeah, all sorts of. And there's even more than that, but those are just the ones I wrote down. And then obviously Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst is a 12-minute whole. That's two whole songs in one. And it really gives it a bigger feel. I don't know, or something like that. It's just,
Yeah.
he's telling a story throughout this entire thing. It's in my opinion, one of the best storytelling albums of all time. And him having on the same track two different sounding whole bits to it is really allows him to tell that story much better, in my opinion. And yeah, I even wrote down like tiny stuff, like very small, minute shit. The second part, especially to swimming pools, I love that it's the extended version, because the version that got big back when I was in high school was not the extended version, and then it took me years to actually listen to the full thing, and I love the second half of that song. It's so fucking good.
Yeah.
Another thing to kind of go into the whole storytelling thing that he did on this album is at the end or beginning of most, like basically every song on this, there's like these weird little skits, and they continue, like it might not even tie into the track that just happened or is about to begin, but if you listen to the whole thing cover to cover, you can connect the dots of what's going on, especially with the end skit of Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, is the old lady having the guys recite the prayer that literally starts off the album on Shireen, which is absolutely fucking insane to me. Like how, because Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst is, like I said, it's a 12-minute song, but it's also way down at the bottom. And Shireen, that's literally the start of the whole album. So
yeah,
the way that it doesn't even, like, it's not a straightforward way to tell the story using the skits, you know, the fact that you have to really sit there and kind of try to register what you're listening to, because you'd be like, oh shit, that connected to a song that was like 8 tracks ago. Like,
Yeah.
it flows together. Definitely flows together in a special way. And I think Kendrick is really up there with, you know, people who've been in the rap game for a long time, like Nas or something, you know, where they could tell a story and you could really feel how he feels. And I think the beat production really like aids him into, you know, like giving like a really good story, really heartfelt story, and you really see it like with every album that he's put out. He just kills it every single time. Yeah, it's just I think the album went triple platinum. I think, which is no surprise to me.
no.
It's just like he puts out a project and then it just shakes the world.
Right.
Like even
Exactly.
people who don't listen to rap eventually just start listening to it. Like it's he's that big of an artist.
No, when this album, like, sorry to cut you off, George, but like when this album came out, like it did propel Kendrick Lamar to like, and he was like on the forefront of rap, and like his name came up in conversation. That's like, oh, he is like the up and coming like greats like of this generation. Because after like even the albums after this that followed this, like To Pimp a Butterfly, like that is like arguably in a lot of people's like view and standpoint, like one of his best albums and probably one of the better rap albums. Like,
I think that won a Grammy.
yeah, like, and the fact that this album didn't win a Grammy, like, I think,
You know,
like,
do you remember what it lost to for best album?
MGK, dude, like, or not MGK, freaking Macklemore.
Macklemore.
Yeah, it's a joke, bro.
I
Like,
remember I was pissed off too.
yeah,
I was very pissed off.
At that point, people started realizing like the Grammys, like it's like it's
Stupid, yeah.
yeah. But like going back to this album, like yeah, like and also backpacking what Dorian said, that like the album, like some of the songs are like two-parted. I love that about that too. Like it's like it's a song and then like it'll just the beat switch will come in and then it's like a whole different track, but it's in the same song. Like Mad City, like don't get me wrong, I love the first part of Mad City, but the second part, listening back to it, I was like, dude, I think I like this more than the actual beginning of it. Like it's hard, dude. Like the beat switch comes on, it's like so good, and then he's just going at it like bar for bar, like he's mad. Like I was like, dude, this song, how did I not listen to the other half of this? Like it's badass. Like the fact that like he can just flip a switch like that and just like completely switch the flow, like it's crazy for Kendrick.
And that's funny that you bring that up because there was a time at work months ago, like before we did this, we were doing something and I just randomly walked by you and said, I was like, fresh out of school because I was a high school grad. And you were like, what the fuck was that? And I like explained it to you, like, I don't think I've actually like listened to that in forever. And I was like, so when I brought this up, I was like, man, he's gonna hear that and he's gonna shit his britches.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, like this is like so good. It made me like think back, like how did I not like completely ignore this like on the first time that I had like listened to it? Like it's so badass.
It'd be like that.
Yeah, no, for real. And then like the Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, dude. I love that song. Like just the storytelling that Kendrick does on that first song with like that like smooth ass beat, like with the little snare and drums and the like just and the way that he's like storytelling throughout that first half of that song, like you hear it and then he's like just telling it's kind of like slideshows. Like you could see it like slide by slide, like that he's like explaining it and he's breaking it down. And yeah, it like gave me the chills when I was listening back to it. Cause this is a song that I used to listen to a lot back in the day. Like, cause I like those songs. To me, I like hip hop that's like very lyrical and it makes you like listen, like really listen to the like what they're saying and like, cause it's storytelling. Like, and it's storytelling to like the perfect sense. And that's what Kendrick does. Yeah, because he's like explaining everything and breaking it down, and it like almost sounds like a movie, basically.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about that song, I was listening to it today, is that when you listen to it, he's rapping from the perspective of like three different characters in that first part of that song. You know, talks about basically himself and then one of the dudes in his group and then a prostitute that's like a friend of theirs and shit. And it's unreal. And it's like anytime I see on any like platform, like internet platform, like Facebook, Reddit, or Twitter, where it's like, what's the best storytelling song of all time? I always jump in just to comment this, and I'm like the 88th person to do so. And I'm like, I don't even give a shit. Like I'm like, it is that to me. Like the storytelling aspect of this is unreal, and it gets me like no matter how many times I've heard it, when I'm listening to it, you know, any of the variables, I get chills and I get fucking in my feels. I'm like, fuck, man, like
yeah.
It's one of those songs. So, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think like back to the little storytelling, like you're saying, like I think like that's why I compared them to like Nas and like you know, a couple other people, because like Nas has a song called "I Gave You Power," and like it's a perspective from a gun, and he's telling it like if he's the gun, and how he's murdered people, and how he's been through different like other people in different gangs and how he's traveled through different states being sold illegally. And when I think of people who can tell a story to that like level and that degree and like do something other than your own perspective, like that's pretty awesome because it shows that you're literally putting yourself outside of your shoes. Like you put yourself in other people's perspective and to see the bigger picture, right? And I think that's something that Kendrick has always done, and I think that resonates with people. Yeah, and I think that's really like why he went triple platinum with this album, because other than it telling two different stories on one song or a nice long story, they're just bangers throughout it, and radio friendly bangers too. So it really just pleases like a wide variety of different like audiences.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did I have anything? There's a lot of orchestral sounds on it, like a lot of violin samples, a lot of, just big. There's a lot of songs that just like Money Trees is one. It's got like a sick little sick little violin at the end of it.
I was thinking about that right now.
Yeah, and speaking on Money Trees, that is probably my favorite J-Rock verse in his entire catalog. The way that it starts out, like J-Rock's verse on that, when it starts out and there's no drum track yet, and then as soon as the drum track hits, he's just perfectly subdividing the hell out of it, and I'm like, oh my god, like he just kicks it up a notch, just a slight. And yeah, Money Trees also another favorite song of mine off this album. But
I'm glad J-Rock was on that album, honestly, because J-Rock is like, I guess there's another song later that comes up, but it basically explains that it's him and J-Rock, like they grew up together and they just started rapping together. So it's like him having his childhood friend like on this song, and they just both go off, and it's pretty sick. And then now they're under the same label, Top Dog, and Top Dog is just like fucking crazy. You got Schoolboy Q,
Wild Freestyle,
SZA, you got Wild Freestyle, that's the one. You got SZA, you got what's his name?
Zay, you got Zay.
Yeah, Zaire Shot, but I forget his name. Wow, I'm forgetting.
Absol,
yeah, Black
Absol, yeah. And like it's just such a strong group of lyricists and like artists that come out of that have come out of that label.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I mean, everybody sees Kendrick as the forefront, like the top dog, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But I think everybody else in that whole label like really deserves their own Grammy, because like each artist put out an album that is absolutely like mental. Like, yeah, Kendrick, and that's the other thing about Kendrick is like he came out so confident that right away people were like already comparing him to Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, dude, he was the next Tupac. Like he's rapping about like real shit. He's rapping and telling a story. He has a sensitive side to him, and you could see it on each album. And he's ill as fuck. Like he has such a dope, like confident rhyme flow and everything. And he's from Compton too. And everybody's like, yo, he's the next Tupac, Crazy.
Shit, he kind of is already, It's wild that's been the thing.
I don't dispute it. I honestly do not dispute that.
No, I don't either. But do we have anything else to say about Good Kid before we dive into the next one?
I think I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, I think everything that's said like really does highlight like the impact of this album and how good it is. Even to this day, it's such a bang. So.
Oh yeah. And it goes on such a journey too. There's so many different feels to it, Like we've basically named every song off of the album, but there will be tracks where it's, you know, really mellow and laid back, but it's still telling an incredible story. And then the next track right after it is just like a banger that you want to play in the gym or something, you know. It's just shit like that about this album that it's one of those like icing on the cake things, you know. But do we want to take a break before we dive into the next, or? Alrighty. And so up next we have Jacob's album. Jacob, what did you pick for us this week? Remind the masses.
So last week came to the consensus that if it ain't Boldy, wipe your ass with it. So
if it ain't Boldy.
This is the deluxe version of The Price of Tea in China. I got this just because it's like cheaper than the actual original version, because the original version is fucking expensive. But this album, it is their second album official together. Third, if you want to put it literal, but their second, their first one being My First Chemistry, that came out in 2013. So it's a duo. It's a collaborative album that is beats and the production by the Alchemist, Alan the Chemist, and rapping on the mic, the MC is Boldy James. This is their, like I said, second album. It came out right after Boldface EP, a EP that Boldy James and Alchemist did in 2019. So this is a follow-up to that. And yeah, it's a great album. What did you guys think? I'll let you guys go first on this one.
I wish I would have heard this sooner. You basically introduced me to Boldy James, and I started off with Bo Jackson because I was like, oh, this came out, you know, the same, like it was 2021, and I was like, all right, well, let's start with Bo Jackson, and I fucking loved that. And then I went back and listened to this because I didn't realize, you know, that they had multiple projects together, and this album's unreal. It's fucking fantastic. The production on it, the Boldy's rapping on it, all of this, everything on it is fantastic. Let's see here. The features on it too, man. They got like the fact that they got Vince Staples on there, and I mean Freddie Gibbs. They do stuff together pretty frequently, but you got Benny on it. Like, it's fantastic, just top to bottom. The production on it goes so many different places. It's very experimental for Alchemist. That's what I love about collabs that he does, is it'll always be, especially when it's in a full album, he'll experiment the hell out of it, which is fantastic. You know, there's a couple albums that will be brought up in this podcast that he especially does, but this one has a lot of different stuff going on production wise. And yeah, I'll dive back in a minute, but George, what did you think?
I love this album. I remember when it came out, I didn't like fully listen to it. I just heard a couple of songs, and Pots and Pans was the first song that I heard off of it. That came up on my recommendation to the Discover Weekly on Spotify. And dude, and yeah, this was the first time I heard Boldy, and he like sounded so different from like any other rapper, kind of like Kendrick too. And I feel like he just had like some like chill like type of way of rapping, but also like he has times where he just snaps and just like goes off. And I think Pots and Pans is definitely the track where he just absolutely just snaps. And then him being from Detroit, like he sounds way different from other rappers that are from Detroit, like Big Sean, and LZ, no, LZ, and you know, a couple other people. But he just like, I feel like he was just a sensation, like almost immediately. Like as soon as I heard him, I was like, damn, coupled with Alchemist production, I was like, yo, because Alchemist always has like, for the most part, his beats are kind of gritty, and the artists that he's worked with, for the most part, are all gritty rappers. I think the only person that I could really think that aren't that gritty is maybe like Earl Sweatshirt and Action Bronson. But other than that, like all the people that he's worked with are very like, but they're a little bit more dark. But even if they are kind of like dark, I think Alchemist can play the role of also making like lighter beats, like run-ins, for example. Like that one's kind of like soulful and also kind of like gangster. That track is dope. But yeah, and then like I don't know if you guys know who Chuck English is. I think Jacob, you know who he is.
Yeah.
But that's his cousin.
Oh damn! Is it?
Yeah, I didn't know that
What?
either.
What?
That's his cousin. Yeah. So yeah, so that's pretty crazy. Now I'm kind of hoping eventually we'll see like a Joey Badass, Boldy James kind of collab. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Over a Chuck English beat. That'd be pretty sick.
Getting close. You know, he did a song with Nick Caution.
Nick Caution. That's right. Yeah, he just did.
No,
yeah,
dude,
I remember we were talking about that.
Going back to what you were saying about Boldy, like when I heard this album, because I had heard Boldy before, and I had kind of brushed him aside, because even recently I've been going back to listening to all of Boldy's stuff, and I liked it, but not as much as this album. And the reason being, when you listen to Boldy James, his voice is so unique, and it really, like, he has a voice that's like made for hip hop. Like his voice is like just so like deep, and like when he raps, he's like, you know, he's like rapping really in like a deep pitch. And in all of his previous stuff, I was like, okay, he has the same voice. I like this guy's voice, but this album, I feel like it kind of caught up to how much that I liked his voice. Because when he is like rapping with the production, like it just like ramps it up like that much more. It takes it to like the next level where like it highlights like that both of them when they come together, like it literally is like almost perfect. Like Alchemists like are meant for like Boldy James, for like a rapper that has like that dark and like energy, but it's like a very like deep voice that is very unique. Like not a lot of people have a voice like Boldy James. Like you hear him and you're like, whoa, like you can't really pinpoint someone else that kind of sounds similar to him. So that's what's unique about Boldy James, because it's very different compared to like high pitch like rappers that have like a really higher pitch voice, or like that go yeah, like it's very different. Plus, like, I don't know, something about this album, the track listing, I really like the way that it's like sequenced out. Like the fact that it starts out with Caruth. And Caruth, it's kind of like the beat is a little bit more mellow, and it's a little bit more like not so upbeat, not so up tempo. But I feel like it's a perfect start because it like really sequenced into like what this album is about and like what it's talking about. Because it's just like mellow beats with Boldy James just rapping about this like lifestyle that he was like a part of, like the drug selling, all the crime and everything that he was getting into, and then like the come up and how he's trying to avoid it. The song itself, Caruth, it's like it is very deep if you like read into it. I have like some of the lyrics like pulled up, and like at one point he's like, erase him with a text pop up at your mother crib from the city where dudes get hit for shit that they brother did. Like, dude, like it it's like coming from Detroit, it kind of it makes you like think about like, you know, like there's like consequences for what he was doing like in this past life, you know. It's like at a point where he's this type of rap, it's not that they're like glorifying like like drug selling and all that stuff, but they're bringing attention to it, like the struggle that they were at one point and where they're at right now, and how they're trying to get rid of that, get away from that scene, and like on the come up, and they're trying to grind like out of it. And that's kind of what I
They
appreciate.
grew up in that situation, and like that's what they're rapping about. I definitely get that like a lot. I think um, like I feel like he does kind of like brag a little bit, but like whatever, you got bragging rights, dude. Like you fucking made it now. Like fuck, like you literally did some crazy ass shit. Look at where you're at now, you know. And it, dude, yeah, like he just goes off. I think really, I think Prodigy. I think he's the only artist that I feel like he might kind of sound, or Boldy might kind of sound like Prodigy. Um, but other than that, like, yeah, I think Boldy is just ruthless. Like he's just like very bold with the way that he raps. Like we've talked about the Griselda squad, we've talked about Conway, Benny, you know, on the West Side, like on the chat and stuff like that. But I think Boldy takes the cake for it. Like honestly, I think Boldy definitely takes the cake for it. Like he just is so ruthless with it, and like sometimes he doesn't even have to be aggressive. Like he's just like, yo, you know, I did this and that. Um, and I want to pull up the lyrics to Pots and Pans because like that song is just crazy. But then also Surf and Turf within Staples. Yeah. Man, that beat is just holy crap. And then for like someone who's from the Midwest to work with Vince Staples, who's also from Compton, I forgot to mention him, but he's also from Compton. And they just, Vince Staples is like a very street smart person. I'm not a huge fan of his music, but I'm a huge fan of him as a person. He is so fucking funny and smart. And then coupled with, you know, Boldy James, like, man, together they did a fire ass job on that song. Alchemist did amazing production on that song. But yeah, I think for me, like it's hard to tell because like, you know, Run In and Scrape the Bowl and Snort I love a lot. But I think for me, Pots and Pans and Surf and Turf are my favorite songs off this album.
And yeah, I can agree with that, at least on the Surf and Turf side. And my favorite thing about it, besides the beat and the fact that Vince is on there, because I love Vince, is how well like that weird like that newscasting like sample at the end of it literally leads right into run-ins, and it's just a beautiful transition between those two songs. So that is one of my favorite things about it. But another song that I want to talk about is Scrape the Bowl. Why was that like the best beat that Benny and Boldy could have traded bars over on this? Like I listened to the whole thing and I was like, oh, out of all the beats on this album, this is definitely the fucking one that was meant for this. Just that boom, like that beat is fun, dude.
And they're like both like bouncing back and forth, like just going bar for bar, like
yeah.
It's insane, man.
Yeah, it's like a boxing match with rap bars. It's not even like full verses, but Jesus,
got hard
dude.
beats with the piano at the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's that song. My God, dude.
I think Alchemist knew, like, yo,
100%.
Benny is coming on this track. We got to make it as hard as possible, and they did it.
Yeah. I love the sequencing of like the tracks. I already said this, but like that emphasizes how much like the transition from track to track is like flawless. Like the end of that song going into run-ins, and then what song is it? Like Slow Roll. Slow Roll is a banger, bro. Like I'll be listening to that like if I'm like have my hoodie up, you know, it's like dark at night. And it's like you're just rolling past, like wherever you are. If you're blasting that, you feel badass. Like the beat and then the bass just hits, and it's like it's nasty. But like the end of Slow Roll that goes into like, it's like someone like cocking their gun, and then it's like someone talking in the background slightly, and then it just cuts into the little intro that it has for Snort with Freddie Gibbs, the da 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 da. It just
Yeah.
kicks in. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like some like Simpson shit, and then it just
Yeah.
hits, bro. The beat just goes in, and then dude, it's insane. Like the fact that the features on this, I feel like are perfect. Like they complement not only the beats, but like Boldy James perfectly. Like it has like that contrast of like very knowledge based and like the kind of like lyrics that you get from Vince Staples and then from Evidence, and then at the same time like the hard hitting bars that you get from like Benny the Butcher and Freddie Gibbs. Like they both like complement each other so well that like when they're together, like every track is a banger. Like every track is a banger. I think my favorite of this album have to be Giant Slide. Um, that song is super good. That beat on that is amazing. Um, Giant Slide, I like Slow Roll, and I love Snort. Snort is like one of my favorite songs. I think last year, like that Spotify, it gives you like what you listen to the most and what song came up. I think Snort was like my first or second one. Like that song is like I have that on repeat, bro, because it's like Boldy hit goes in and he's rapping like super hard, and then Freddie Gibbs just comes in out of nowhere, and yeah, dude, it's really crazy.
Freddie always comes in rapping at 100 miles per hour.
Exactly. My last thing that I want to say, you brought up Giant Slide, so I'll bring it up. I almost feel like Giant Slide should have been the start of the album with how just, I don't know, Caruth is a great song, don't get me wrong. I love it too. But it just, I don't know, I feel like anybody that's probably listened to this probably, thinks Giant Slide's one of the better songs on the album. But that slow, like Caruth kind of has like a slow, like more mellow, laid back feel to it. And then to launch, like really makes that intro for Giant Slide that much more dramatic, which I think, I'm like, I was thinking about that today. I was like, like that could have been the first track, but at the same time, it makes Giant Slide that much better being the second.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fucking nasty, dude. Like, and just the bars on a lot of these songs are really good, really hard. Like, even thinking about like the Freddie Gibbs song, like at some point he's like just the stuff that they talk about, and like they're talking about like drug rap and like selling dope and like how they came up and shit. Like it really is like it puts you in the mindset that like yeah, they like did this at some point. Like they really did.
It
Like
puts you in a different whole like world.
yeah, exactly. Because like I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've never like even considered any of that or like thought of putting myself in that situation. But like the fact that people have and like they're getting away from that and they have a story to tell about it, like it really does like kind of it kind of like educates you on like how it is and like how dangerous it is. And I feel like that's
that's why I like Pots and Pans, because like he just casually dropped in one line that he grew up in youth homes.
Yeah.
He's like the whole beginning is crazy, but he was like, I was rocking Unos, hey, fresh up out the youth homes, charged me as an adult. Since then I've been too grown. Nobody could tell me I was heading up the wrong road, drug dealing, thugging, young brother with the old soul. Rose gold wires hopping out the Panamera, two twin Glocks with 30s, call them Tia and Samara. I'm like, dude, this guy, and he's like, oh my god, dude. It's like, that's why I think for me, Pots and Pans just goes so hard. Like, I definitely would recommend you guys to listen to that again, because he just goes so hard, and he talks about rocking like like Jordan 1s and shit like that. It's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, no, he like Boldy James definitely like growing up in Detroit. He had to grow up quick because like
Yeah.
you can't like you have to like you're like in a struggle basically like especially on career.
Detroit ain't no game. I mean, Detroit, and it's. I don't
Yeah,
mean to bring cars into this, but Detroit was the capital of like muscle cars, you know. And then after a while, when um, Japanese cars entered the market, they literally put Detroit off the map because there are these affordable cars that had better miles per gallon than these muscle cars that were packing like uh, V8s and everything, and they come out with little dinky like you know inline fours that have better mileage per gallon. It's like, dude, and it literally just wiped them out off the map. Um, and it literally just like crumbled that community. And yeah, but there's been a lot of talent that comes out of there. I mean, look at Big Sean.
Yeah.
I'm kind of not a big fan of him that much, but like, I mean, that's just an example, you know.
And Eminem too.
Eminem, yeah, exactly. Eminem and Royce the 5'9" too, which is part of Slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
Um,
and speaking
Danny
on the
Brown
whole,
too, and Jay Dilla, and his brother Illa J.
That's true. Huh.
Yeah.
And speaking on the whole, like Detroit being, that's where like Ford started and everything. Like the Ford family still owns the Detroit Lions and shit.
Yeah.
The giant slide again, going back to it. That's one of the things I love about that intro is the sample of the guy saying one plant after another has abandoned Detroit, and then that beat kicks in, and I'm like, holy fuck!
yeah,
Because there's like there's no pause between it. It's just that guy says that, and then that beat drops, and I'm like, oh. Holy shit. Like the first time I heard this song, I lost my mind. I had to literally play that again. I was like, did he just say? And then I looked it up and saw that Boldy was from Detroit, and I was like,
That makes sense.
yes.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, that is so fucking cool. Oh, I lost my mind at that.
yeah, no, I think this album really kind of puts to shine like what power like two people when they collab and come together, like what of a powerhouse they can be and like how
Right.
they can be. Because like we see it all the time, especially now more than ever. Like you'll see a producer and a rapper just make a whole album. Like you see now Hit Boy do it. You see it happen a lot with Jay-Z. He gets like Kanye that produces his album. You see it a lot now more than ever that like a producer and a rapper will come together and just make something absolutely insane. And this kind of backpacks on it because Boldy James and Alchemist have been together for the longest. Even when it was coming up, like he was friends with Boldy and brought Boldy along to like trips and tours that he was doing. Like when he was barely even like being a rapper and like being a producer. So the fact that like they're both on here, like it highlights like the powerhouse that two people can have, and this is why they still, came out with another album after this last year, and then like a EP kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like this album. I think is one of my more favorite albums in the last couple of years, especially for an up and coming underground hip hop artist.
Yeah. And that's one of the things like that, one of those sentiments, just to backpack off you really quick, that you just shared about how two artists can come together. Like that's one of the cool things about it is like on this show, we've talked about a couple different albums now. Like it goes to show how impactful it can be when two people work together. Like Boldy and Alchemist have done, these albums have really shown, like put that, I don't know, like that Griselda, I don't call it, I was like, the way I kind of put these people in a box and then, or these rappers into kind of a thing to help compartmentalize is like, they're not underground, they're not mainstream, but they're off kilter. So they're like obscure. I call them like obscure rap artists. And these projects between Al and Boldy have really helped, in my opinion, to kind of put more of like to help kind of grow this genre, because there's more and more people I talk to as time goes on that I've been listening to Boldy for like the past, I don't know, like not even a year, like 8 months. It's like more and more people all like tell about him, and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of this project, you know, like I might have heard something about something off of Price of Tea, or you know, the Bo Jackson tracks, or Super Tecmo Bo. Like they do these projects, and it really, like even these guys, you know, like we talked about last week, Roy Haynes and Quincy Jones, that being a very early collab of two artists that really shook a lot of things up. First episode we talked about Mad Villainy, which was also kind of, I think, a big part in, you know, spawning this next generation of projects where a really well-renowned producer and a very, very well-renowned MC get together and make something crazy.
Yep. Oh yeah, that sums it up. Yeah, because like when two people come together and they're both like powerhouses and they know what they're doing, like they'll make something that really is pretty insane. But yeah, if it ain't Boldy, you know.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna grab one more. I'm gonna grab a beer, and then we can dive into George's. Up next, we have George's album. What did you pick for us? Remind the viewers at home or the listeners in the car.
Behold a Dark Horse by Rock Marciano. This album is so dope. Came out in 2018. Super like dark but fun kind of vibe. And then of course Rock Marcy delivers with the lyrics. He goes hard as hell. Yeah, it's just super good album. Front to back, no skips type of album for me. This is definitely an album I want to listen to at night. If I'm riding my bike, I'm listening to this album. It's a mood for sure, 100%. I have a couple more things I want to bring up, but I'll bring it up after you guys want to give your input.
Yeah, Rock Marciano is one of those artists I feel like that he is like an OG in the underground scene. Like he has been rapping and producing in the underground for the longest. Even a little like for his background, like wasn't he like
I think like 2010 was like the shit where he actually like did something, but I think he's done shit way before on it, like obviously, but yeah. 2010 was like his like mixtape shit,
yeah,
which was now 10 years ago or over 10 years.
Yeah, he's had songs like that he was like featured on like De La Soul and stuff, like wasn't he? Like he goes back, like he's had like his foot in the scene for the longest time, and for good reason, because like his production and like his lyrics more than anything. I feel like when I listen to Rock Marcy, every time, like something about it, man, it just makes me like just like all like jittery, and it gives me like it's like some sort of vibe that you just like feel fly as hell. Like you feel like
dude, because he has like such a laid back, like fly, fucking cool ass fucking lyrics.
Yeah.
Where he's like gangster, but like smooth as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes with his tone too. Like his tone is so like, yo, you know what I mean?
It's like really like braggadocious and like very like fly like lyrics. Like some of his songs, like I'll listen to it and the beat is like catchy, and then I'll hear the lyrics and like most of them will like fly over my head because like I'm like, what the heck did he just say? But like when I listen back to it, especially with this album. When I was listening back to it, I was liking a lot more of the songs like that I didn't like at first. I was like, this song is actually really good, and like listening more to the lyrics and even looking up, like I wanted to look up the lyrics because I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what does this mean? What does he mean? Chanel 9, yeah, like what is this? Like he's referencing like perfume and like high fashion, like very much like kind of West Side Gun. But like in his own style, that it's like it's like so fly and it's like so cool. And you like when I listen to it, I'm like, dude, this is like fly ass music, like super cool music.
Yeah. That's some fly shit for sure.
No, this is another one of those artists that I really got introduced to by way of you guys. I had never like I feel like I had heard the name Rock Marciano kind of similar to how I had heard of Boldy James, and I had listened to Alchemist production before, but I didn't. I was telling Jacob earlier this week, this is the first time I've ever actually listened to a Rock Marciano project cover to cover, like actually given it a solid listen through. And it was interesting. I'm going to listen to his other stuff to see how it compares, because I felt like, the stuff that he, like you kind of said it, it's a very laid back kind of feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this album is very relaxed almost. It's not as, I don't know, a lot of, like we talked about.
Not like.
Yeah, it's not like high energy or, anything. Like we talked about Good Kid, Mad City, which has, some really like hard hitting tracks, and I feel like Behold a Dark Horse has hard hitting tracks, but it's not like, these super like hype things that you're going to play in a party or when you're driving in the car with the boys, to like get everyone riled up. You're not going to put on anything off of Behold a Dark Horse, which isn't bad by any means. It's an interesting thing that actually is kind of how I came away from the album. I didn't know that he was a producer too. I had no idea until this morning. I was listening to this and I was like, who produced this album? And then I looked and it had like guest production and I was like, is Rock Marciano a fucking producer too? And I was like, well, okay. And that made it even more fun to listen to. I would say one of the coolest things about the album is Diamond Cutters having Black Thought on it. That was pretty.
Yeah, dude.
That was what made me look him up. I was like, how the fuck? I literally was like, how the fuck is Black Thought on this song? And that's when I went and looked up Rock Marciano. I was like, oh, he's been active since 1999. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
He just really, like you had said, he started releasing stuff in the 2010s. I was like, oh shit, that's why he has Black Thought on there, because he's essentially an old head at this point.
Yeah. Very much an underground old head.
Did this album come out before, like not on streaming, or did it just get released on streaming recently? Because I feel like this
I think it came out in 2018, and I think it was just streaming.
Okay.
But yeah, Rock Marcy is so underground that like many people don't know, but he joined Flip Mode Squad, which is Busta Rhymes' old school squad, and he has a song produced by Q-Tip. I think it's Consigliere.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh shit, I can't believe you worked with Q-Tip. But then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, he was part of Flip Mode Squad with Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes have worked with A Tribe Called Quest multiple times. So I'm like, oh, no wonder. It all makes sense. Connections, right?
Yeah, the exact same thing I went through. That's fire.
Yeah, and it's like, in the way that he raps too, like, again, just like all three artists that we picked today, like, they all have unique sounds. And Rock Marcy is another one where he's just smooth. He's like a smooth, ill, like, I'm flexing, but I'm going to say some fucking cool shit. And funny shit, too. Like, he says some really funny shit. And I think I feel like he really, like, says shit similar, has, like, a similar style to m.a.a.d. Because he's really witty and goofy sometimes. And then he'll say something hard. And funny enough, they're both from Long Island too, which is, awesome. And then I think they actually worked together at one point. I have to fact check that, but I think they worked together at one point. But yeah, like, also Rakim was from Long Island, so was m.a.a.d, but m.a.a.d claimed Queens more than Long Island, but from the same place. And then like, dude, all these songs, like it was like some of these songs have like orchestra in it, which make it sound so dope. With Configure, and I think it was 1,000 Deaths and Secrets. But so what stood out to me throughout this whole album was Configure and Diamond Cutters, because for some odd reason, these two tracks remind me of video games. I do not know why. Like, if you go back and listen to it, Diamond Cutters and Configure remind me of video games. Configure reminds me of Super Smash Bros. For some reason. And then, you know, what was I just talking about? Diamond Cutters reminds me of like an indie type game or something like that. But yeah, I think my favorite tracks from this album was like Amethyst and Configure, honestly, which Q-Tip produced. And then Alchemist only had one song that he produced on his whole album, which was Fabio. But the whole like track list, like is such a like nighttime vibe where it's kind of like dark, but also you're just having fun on like each track. And yeah, like the title "Behold a Dark Horse" is a Bible reference. I don't know if you guys know, but it is a Bible reference. It's like that comes up when the Bible is talking about like the third horse, which is a dark horse with which a guy is like holding scales, which represents famine. And if you guys look at the album cover art, and this is what blew me away and immediately made me start like listening to it, was because the album cover art was literally almost the same exact as Gustave Doré's 1880s or 1866 The Vision of Death. And it's literally the same horse and the same, like it has a person on there with a scythe. And the only switch up is the color and Rock Marciano on there with the scythe, except the scythe has a mic at the end. And, you know, Rock has like the shades with the Jesus piece flying off, you know. But it's just like, and then the album cover art, the person who did it is named Dorian, which is also someone who's done artwork for Alchemist before too. And I really think, I don't know, like this album is just like a whole like vibe. And this person that did the album cover art also did the album cover art for the Alchemist Prodigy's album, Albert Einstein, which has, to me, has very similar vibe and beats to this album by Rock Marciano. But yeah, Rock Marciano is definitely like a phenomenal beat maker. Like his beats, he made 6 songs out of this 12 like song project. So he literally did like half the production. And even with all these other people who made different tracks, it all falls within like the same like vibe, like the same mood. And it's mind blowing. I really think like this is artistry. Like he did something that feels MF Doom inspired, but like from a different perspective. It's less happy and more flexy and more like dark a little bit. But it's so dope.
Yeah, I think I like the production and I like the features. There's only 2 features on here. Well, 3 if you want to consider Q-Tip, his little hook that he did on Congo.
Right.
But Black Thought and Knowledge the Pirate. I like that he collabed with Knowledge the Pirate on this one, because Knowledge the Pirate is also one of those like underground rappers that he's very good. I almost considered buying record that went on sale. I think it's still on sale right now. Might even still think about going back for it because I do like Knowledge of the Pirate, and I think that's why I like that song No Love because he's on there. And one of my other favorite songs is Congo. Something about Congo, like when you hear the beat come in, then you hear the fast little Congo drum, like they're just like bouncing in the background, and then pair that together with the raps that that Rock Marcy brings. Like I have his lyrics pulled up, and they're funny and they're witty, but you get it if you know. Like at one point he's like, "How dare you go gambling with your life like it's a handful of dice? You better off trying to dance on some ice in some Nikes."
Yeah.
Like his bars are like so good, and like I had to go back. I was like, was that just a bar? Was that good? And I was like, yeah, that's good. There's another one here where where's it at? I gotta find it. He talks about, here we go. He's like, that's a fact, Jack. It's under the Snapple cap. Like he's referencing like the Snapple bottles. Like at one point, the glass cans at the bottom of the cap, they'd have facts on them, and he's like, "That's a fact. Like it's just like under the Snapple cap." Like, dude, like the fact that he's like comparing that, and like if you know like what he's talking about, you'll catch it, and you're like, dude, that's like clever.
He's so creative, and that's why I like compared him to m.a.a.d is because they have like, even though they're very different, they have the same quirky, like funny, like rapping style. And they're both from like Long Island, but yeah, dude. I think like this album is definitely like one for the books. Like I definitely love this album so much, and the artwork almost even more. It's so dope.
Yeah,
and Rock Marcy is definitely like one of those people that like. So the first time I heard him was on Prodigy and Alchemist album, Albert Einstein, and he was just kind of like, oh, he's just like another rapper, like whatever. But I always thought he sounded different, and yeah, I just kind of like banked it into my mind. I was kind of like whatever, but then later when I discovered his stuff, I was like, oh shit! I'm like, he was like really tight. And I'm not even like a huge fan of his stuff. Like whenever like I hear a song from him, I'm never gonna skip it. I'll tell you that because he's just that good. You know what I mean? But this album was one that I heard in its entirety that I'm like, oh shit, he's really good. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much like that's my final thoughts on him.
Yeah. I have a couple of last things that I want to throw in there. So kind of going back to what you said, like you had a couple tracks on here, Diamond Cutters, and another one having like a video game kind of feel to it. I had the same thought, but with a different track. Secrets sounds like I'm playing like GoldenEye or something on the Nintendo 64, and I'm like in a dark room. It's like got like some weird like, it's like very synth heavy, I think is probably what it is, but it's like a very dark, so I feel like I'm in like a dark room playing like Doom 64 or something like that, or like fucking GoldenEye. But I liked that song a lot. Fabio is probably the most Alchemist beat of all time.
Yeah.
Like that that vocal track just chopping it. I'm like that. As soon as that came out, I was like, oh, Alchemist produced this song, and I hadn't even looked it up yet. I was like, Alchemist produced this easily, and looked up the. It was the most, exactly, Alchemist type beat on YouTube was essentially what it was. But I liked that song. kind of like the majority of Good Kid, it also had a 2-song kind of vibe to it. You know, it kind of squeezed. It had a second part to it that really switched from the first part of the song. And then there was a kind of like I had mentioned with the Ghost Main album, there was that 3-track run on it that was really something else. And this album had one that I was really a big fan of. It was 1,000 Deaths, into Diamond Cutters, and then into Amethyst. I thought that 3-song run was really, really good. I've never made an album, obviously, but I can imagine like track listing and how you order your songs is super important from a listener standpoint, and at least with me, you know, like we talked last week about Tool, that album was perfectly put together as far as track listing goes, and so was this, and this 3-song run is a perfect example of it. You've got 1,000 Deaths, which is it's probably one of the more like actually aggressive songs on the album. It's my favorite one from it, personally.
Very dark.
Is my favorite one from it. And then it goes into Diamond Cutters and has that Black Thought feature. And it's kind of it's like mellowing up a little bit and being a little bit more lyrically driven and making you kind of think more, I guess, no pun intended with the Black Thought thing. And then it goes into Amethyst, which is, I love the instrument of that song, and it's like way laid back, very relaxed. Like, oh, this is martini drinking music, you know? Like, I love that 3-track run. That's probably my favorite part about this album. Favorite song would be 1,000 Deaths, and that's all I've got to say about it.
I think Amethyst might be my favorite, to be honest, just because it's so laid back. But he's just like spitting, like it's so good. I think definitely like Rock Marcy definitely hasn't had his roses yet, which is funny because you look at it. What is it called? His last album has a rose on it, and then this album, the horse has a rose in his mouth.
Right.
And it's just like, damn, like I really feel like Rock Marcy, to the people who like underground rap, I think is very appreciated. But I think to the mainstream, like obviously nobody knows who this thing is. Which kind of sucks to hear, but also I feel like that's kind of like the gold, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like bittersweet almost, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of like my finishing thoughts on this album. If you like Rock Marciano and you like the sound of this and the sound of this guy's voice, definitely look into some of his other stuff, because he's got great other songs. He's got a bunch of albums that he has also like collabed with. Like he has a DJ Muggs album that's just with him and DJ Muggs. DJ Muggs is like a really like
DJ Muggs is super cool.
Yeah, very like well-renowned producer. One of the better albums that I like of Rock Marcy is Marciano. Fantastic fucking album. And then RR2, The Bitter Dose. I actually have that on vinyl. And those are also like very like very instrumental heavy and very different, very experimental also. The Bitter Dose.
Is Marciano the one where he has like the 2 guns?
The guns, yeah.
Dude, that's the art cover is so dope for that.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah.
The cover is dope. The Bitter Dose, that album is super good too. He has Knowledge the Pirate, Action Bronson, another Knowledge the Pirate song on there. He's got a bunch of Alchemist production on there. So yeah, if you like Rock Marciano and you're just getting into him, definitely try to look into some of his other stuff. He has a bunch of like really good singles too. So
bangers, dude.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, let's introduce the next week's albums. As per usual on Whatchu Spinnin, we're going to go into the albums that we'll be listening to next week and talking about next week's episode. We do go in order with what we talked about today, so I will go first, and Jacob should not be surprised at this whatsoever, but next week we're going to be talking about Yes or Whatever by Quasimodo. We talked a little bit about Quasimodo in episode 1, but I'm excited to get into a full project, and the back art is fucking hilarious too. I'm excited to get into an actual Quaz project. I've got a lot. I love this album. Gets spun quite frequently. I love it. So yeah, Quaz. What was that?
Peel the sticker off.
I want to get another one so I can and put it on something badass. Like just have it on the back windshield of my car. Like
yeah.
But yeah, so Quasimodo, yes or whatever. And then Jacob, what did you have for us?
My next week's album, Malibu by Anderson .Paak.
Woo! That's a good one.
Shit.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Love this album. I know you guys love it too. Who doesn't love this album? You know?
Oh yeah, it's a fire one. I haven't listened to that in ages. I'll have to go back. I'm excited to go back to that. And last but not least, George, what do you have for us next week, pal?
Genesis by Domo Genesis.
Hey, okay, right on. All right, we've got some great shit we're going to talk about next week. We talked about some fantastic stuff this week. I'm excited for next week. Thank you, boys, once again for joining me, and thank you for viewing at home. This has been Whatchu Spinnin' episode 5. Boys, we'll see you later.
Duckus.